Quickly before the video begins, if you would like to earn yourself the sexy pixel perfect emblem, you can do so by gifting a sub to my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/llama2. Now back to the video. Right, hello guys, welcome back. Today we are continuing the series of the top 3 meta builds for each class going into the Edge of Fate. Warlocks, you're up next, and just like the Titan, there are several substantial sandbox changes that are having a considerable knock-on effect on the overall build meta, plus a host of exotic armor reworks that are shaping up to be quite excellent. So let's begin with the one and only Starfire Protocol, and if you enjoy this type of content, a like and subscribe is greatly appreciated as it really helps to support the channel. So, Warlocks. I'm sure we all remember fondly the Starfire Protocol meta from way back in the Lightfall and Witch Queen era, and I'm pleased to report that it's looking like it's very much back. Even after the nerf that slashed the passive grenade energy gains from tick damage, Starfire was still a pretty decent exotic. We even made a build on it here for the final shape season, and people seem to really enjoy it. But with the changes coming in the Edge of Fate, it's being brought to a whole new level. For starters, the biggest change by far is the fact that the perk will now activate on radiant damage, meaning that you don't have to stand in your empowering rifts anymore to gain grenade energy back per kill. All you need is a consistent way of becoming radiant, which is totally revolutionary. To compensate though, the grenade energy per kill is being brought down from 20% to 15%. However, the grenade energy per tick is being raised from 2.5% to 5%, so it should even out, especially if you're running 100 of the new grenade stat. To sum up, this change is going to allow you to become a lot more mobile, and combine that with the fact that 200 grenade stat increases your grenade damage by a further 65%, this build is looking seriously strong. So let's begin breaking it down, starting with our subclass configuration. For the basic abilities, we have the Song of Flame Super, Empowering Rift, which in the Edge of Fate you can swap for Phoenix Dive because we'll no longer need it, Incinerator Snap, and of course the Fusion Grenade. I should note that despite the description of Starfire saying that defeating targets with Fusion Grenades grants Rift energy, it still fully refreshes your Phoenix Dive if you have it equipped. So fingers crossed this stays as it is for Edge of Fate. For the aspects, we're taking Touch of Flame, which is going to make it so our Fusion Grenades explode twice, which as such over doubles the damage output of them. Then Helion is there to provide some extra damage over time. Fragments wise, we're going with Torches, Ashes, Empyrean, and Benevolence. The core loop of this build is simply finding a way to get Radiant and investing in keeping it up for as long as possible, because by doing so, your grenades will come back incredibly quickly, and to be honest, you can think of new Starfire as basically Solar Devour, since the energy returns are basically equivalent, if not better. And also, Starfire Protocol has a hidden bonus that isn't stated anywhere in the perk description, which passively increases your Fusion Grenade recharge rate by 20% whenever you have the exotic equipped, which I think is pretty neat. Speaking of recharge rates, it's time to talk about stats. And because this build is primarily grenade focused, in the Edge of Fate, you're going to want to get as close to 200 grenade stat as you possibly can. Because 1, you maximize the regeneration rate of it, and 2, at this level, your grenades will be dealing 65% more damage like I mentioned earlier, which for a Touch of Flame Fusion Grenade is a lot of extra damage. And similarly, I'm betting you're going to need at least 70 class stat as well so that your Phoenix Dive is fully refunded on Fusion Grenade kill, because I have a feeling this change will work similarly to how Hunters need at least 70 melee stat to receive a full melee charge back after dodging. Weapons wise, I'm pulling from my old build here to once again recommend the Red Death Reformed Exotic Pulse Rifle, mainly because number 1, it's a solo weapon, meaning it can extend your Radiant and Restoration effects, and 2, getting a healing loop started is incredibly easy, especially if you have the Catalyst, because if you've somehow forgotten, Red Death cures you on kill, and every third kill spawns in a remnant that grants restoration times 2. Furthermore, because Red Death is a solar weapon, it's going to pair very nicely with several of the upcoming artifact perks, since it's mostly a solar and stasis based season, but the mod I particularly have my eye on is Radiant Shrapnel. This perk states that sustained weapon damage while radiant releases solar projectiles that damage and inflict scorch, making it even more powerful. And of course, there's a few more elemental pickup based perks, but I won't dwell on those and save it for when we can actually play with them. If you're curious about how to configure your armor mods, then I have the list of ones I use up on screen now, but keep in mind these could change in the Edge of Fate. This is just a good starting baseline. Overall, Starfire Protocol is looking to be very competitive next season, and I can't wait to try it out with all of the new systems in place. So with that, let's move on to build number 2. Shockingly, among all of the nerfs to prismatic aspects like Consecration, Bleakwatcher, and Ascension to name a few, all becoming 2 fragment slot aspects, somehow both Lightning Surge and Feed the Void made it out completely unscathed. And the reason I'm telling you this is because our second build is the classic Lightning Surge spam prismatic Warlock build that, fun fact, is becoming even stronger with the release of the Edge of Fate. So, reason number 1 as to why this build will remain potent is because Lightning Surge will still provide 3 fragment slots and Feed the Void will still provide 2, giving 5 total fragments available just like there are now. Reason number 2, having 200 melee stats will improve the damage of Lightning Surge by a further 30% than it's currently capable capable. And unlike Consecration, Lightning Surge's damage doesn't rely on ignitions. The bulk of the damage comes from the actual melee itself, meaning it's still going to behave identically with a Spirit of Syntheseps class item or better once you mix in 200 melee. Plus, remember that 1-2 Punch is being changed to work with all melee abilities now, including Lightning Surge. So if you want to increase your damage by a further additive 150%, then just kill a single ad with a shotgun and charge into the rest with your Lightning Surge. Of course, like I just mentioned, in order for Lightning Surge to be most effective, it will need to be paired with an exotic class item containing Spirit of Syntheseps, with my preferred second perk being Spirit of Inmost Light. And quick side note, all exotic class items are being automatically converted to the new system. And from what Bungie have told us, we now know that an Inmost Syntho class item will become a Brawler archetype with a tertiary stat for class, meaning that the stat distribution will be 30 melee, 20 health, and 13 class. Anyway, enough rambling, let's get into the build. For the basic abilities, we have Song of Flame, Phoenix Dive, Arcane Needle, so we get 3 Lightning Surge charges, followed by the Cold Snap Grenade for some extra dark energy. For the aspects, we of course have Feed the Void and Lightning Surge. Then for the fragments, we're taking Dominance, Protection, Balance, Purpose, and Dawn. You could swap Dominance for Hope if you're wanting to get your class ability back faster, but I quite like having the Warlock Prismatic Grenade be able to apply Weaken with its Void component, so that's my preference. Gameplay wise, it's nothing you haven't seen before, just slide around and try to efficiently build your light and dark meters to get to Transcendence as fast as you can. Stats wise, it's a tough call really because you're going to want at least 100 in both melee and grenade so they recharge the fastest, with a good reason to go for 200 melee for the bonus damage increase, but in doing so you will likely have to sacrifice some points in super or class, leading to the regen rates for those to suffer. So perhaps let me know in the comments how you plan to distribute your stats for the Prismatic Warlock slide build. Now, if there's one thing I want you to take away from this video, it's this section right here, and that is your choice of weapons for specifically prismatic builds that rely heavily on ability uptime. And what lets you spam your abilities the fastest? Well, that would be your Transcendence ability, so the faster you can charge it, the better. So what's the fastest way to get there? Well, you have a few choices. Currently, the fastest dark energy builders are Tinashe's Mastery with Chill Clip and the Lost Signal Area Denial Frame Grenade Launcher. And as for the light meter, again, your most efficient choices are the VS Velocity Baton, Psychopomp, or Lord of Wolves. And my personal recommendation is to run Tinashe's Mastery and Lord of Wolves. Both of these weapons allow you to build their respective Transcendence energies incredibly quickly, which, as I said, is all you need to worry about when it comes to aggressive melee builds like these. The faster you can charge your meter, the better off you'll be. The armor mods for the build are up on screen now, so feel free to pause and copy them if you need to, but I will have the dim links to all 3 of these builds right down in the description. Who knew that a prismatic build that's not receiving any nerfs would still be broken in the new expansion? Definitely have this one handy, especially if you want to make fun of all the titans that have sadly had to hang up their Consecration builds. Moving on to the last entry, we have the Arc Warlock Geomag Stabilizers build that's been running rampant throughout all of Episode Heresy. And despite Geomag Stabilizers actually catching a nerf in the Edge of Fate, there are several reasons why this build will still be incredibly strong, mostly due to the stat rework, but also a bunch of upcoming artifact perks pair super nicely with it. So let's dive right in. For the basic abilities, you'll obviously be needing the Chaos Reach Super, Healing Rift, Ball Lightning, and the Pulse Grenade. For the aspects, we're going with Electrostatic Mind. This is going to make it so defeating targets with arc abilities or defeating jolted or blinded targets creates Ionic Traces. Then Ionic Sentry, which is going to allow us to spawn an arc turret that blinds on impact and deals damage over time, with each hit from the turret granting us 1 stack of Bolt Charge. For the fragments, we have Frequency, Resistance, Discharge, and Beacons. And with that out of the way, I think now is a good time to discuss the nerfs and buffs to Geomag Stabilizers. First of all, the amount of super energy gained from Ionic Traces is going down from 7% to 4%, which isn't actually as bad as it sounds, and I'll explain why in a moment. And second, the Bolt Charge portion of the perk is getting massively buffed. Now, you only need 5 stacks of Bolt Charge before you can start sprinting to top it off, and the onset Bolt Charge is being changed to 1 stack every 0.33 seconds rather than 1 every 1.5 seconds. And accounting for the new initial windup of 1 second means you only have to sprint for 2.67 seconds to top off your remaining 5 stacks of Bolt Charge, which is a pretty nice quality of life change. So why isn't the quote-unquote super energy nerf not as bad as it sounds? Well, that's because in the Edge of Fate, having 100 super stat is going to yield more incoming super energy than we currently have right now. In fact, I believe it's plus 190% super energy gains from all sources with 100 super, which of course includes Ionic Traces, general weapon damage, orbs of power, and so on. So the actual time to reach your next Chaos Reach is probably going to end up being around the same as it is now, if not better. Plus, having 200 super increases your super damage by 45%, which is essentially a 50% stronger limit break. And given that Chaos Reach with Geomags currently hits for 1.3 million damage with limit break, break, I can only imagine this will go up to at least 1.5 or 1.6 million with 200 super. And yes, I know it won't be those numbers because of the whole number crunch thing happening, but the health bar will still move more because of this. So this neatly brings us onto the stats section, and if you didn't guess already, yes, you will want to prioritize having 200 super stat at all times, with the next ones in line probably being grenade and weapons. Speaking of weapons, Delicate Tomb is your absolute best friend with this build because it synergizes so spectacularly with electrostatic mind, it's not even funny. Collecting an ionic trace overcharges the weapon, so the next shot applies jolt and deals exactly double damage, which as a result spawns another ionic trace, letting you repeat the loop over and over again. Plus, the catalyst partially refills the magazine when collecting ionic traces, so what's not to love? On the topic of ionic traces, several upcoming artifact perks like Refresh Threads, Elemental Coalescence, and Elemental Overdrive all provide varying benefits like increased ability regen and damage bonuses when you go and collect them. So definitely have this build ready, as it's not going anywhere anytime soon. The list of armor mods is up on screen, but again, I will have the dim links in the description for you to copy them hassle-free. Alright then, that about does it for today's video. If you enjoyed, then be sure to leave a like and subscribe and comment what Warlock build you're taking into the Edge of Fate, as I'd love to hear your thoughts. Anyway, that's all for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one where we finish up with Hunter. Bye for now, dear viewer.